Welcome to the Fourth Down Experience, the podcast devoted to special teams. Your host of the Fourth Down Experience, former pro free agent, 9-year professional kicking coach out of the Midwest, Coach Chris Hughesby. Alongside Coach Chris Hughesby is a former 2-time Arena Bowl champ, 9-year pro kicking coach, repping the South, Coach Brian Jackson.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Fourth Down Experience podcast. I'm Brian Jackson along with Christopher Hughesby, and we have a little bit of a switch up for you guys. We actually are going to interview a fantastic referee. He's retired. He's refereed in several NFL games. He retired after 513 NFL games, 26 seasons, and he was quoted here in the Pioneer Press as saying it was time. Tom Barnes. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Well, happy to be here.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for being on the Fourth Down Experience podcast. We're thrilled to talk special teams, talk refereeing, and I think our audience is going to love hearing. So like Brian said, so you recently retired a few years ago?
I retired in October 2012.
2012? Okay, nice.
And I started in the NFL in 1986. And prior to that, I worked in the Big Ten Conference for only 3 years. And then before that, I worked in a small college around Minnesota, the MIAC and the Northern Independent Conference for 9 years. And I actually started officiating in 1968.
Oh, wow.
So I spent a lot of time on the field.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of time. So I guess, how did that lead you into the refereeing in the NFL?
Here's what happened. I played football. I loved football in high school. In my my last game of my senior year in St. Paul, played Minneapolis, and I played it with my. I played for St. Paul Central, and I tore up my knee and finished my career, and I really missed football. So there wasn't many opportunities. I couldn't play football anymore, so I got into officiating, and my brother-in-law called me and wanted to know if I'd work a high school game with him coming up on Friday night. I said, sure, I'll do it. And then I said, but I've never officiated. He said, don't worry about it. We called the State High School League. And it was a weekend where everybody was busy, and they said, go ahead, let Tom work. So I said, okay. And he said, be at my house at 4 o'clock on Friday, and we'll go from there. And I hung up. So then I called him back. I said, well, where's the football game going to be? Now, I lived in Hutchinson, Minnesota at the time, and my brother-in-law was in St. Paul. He says, well, it's in Willow River. And I said, okay, fine. I hung up. I looked on the Minnesota map. I couldn't even find Willow River, but actually it's up by Duluth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I drove all the way at 4 o'clock, he had a striped shirt and an outfit for me to wear, and we drove up, and all the way up there going over the rules. It was a 3-man crew. This was 1968. And he said, here's what you do on kickoffs and on punts. Here's where you stand. Passes, you're going to look for this and that. They go over all the rules, and we got up to Willow River, about a 2.5-hour drive, and walk out on the field, and I didn't remember one thing. I was like complete numb. Anyway, we finished the game, and the athletic director comes in like they always do, gives a check to my brother-in-law, and then you got to go after the game. You go to the local bar and get the check cash, because then you got cash right there. And the check was $45, and there were 3 of us. So that was $15. That's what we got paid.
Wow.
And driving home, Peter says to me, my brother-in-law, he says, well, what'd you think, Tom? And I said, well, I guess it's all right. I don't know. He says, well, in officiating, there's no in between. Either you love it or you don't do it. And I kind of lived with that my whole career. but that's how it started for me.
Wow. So,
And then from there, I moved into the cities the next year into St. Paul. I joined the St. Paul Officials Association, and they would get games for you, and it was pretty good. They had Jimmy Griffin was the head of it. He assigned all the games, and they'd named Central Stadium after Jimmy Griffin. He's no longer with us, but he'd call me on Friday when I first started, and he'd say, "Tom, we need you tonight. Can you work?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Where are we going to go?" And he says, "Well, Siren, Wisconsin." I said, "Okay, fine." And Siren is like a 2-hour, probably more than 2-hour drive. And then the next Friday, he didn't call. The next Friday, he called me back. He said, "We need you tonight, Tom." And he said, "Can you work?" I said, "Sure." And he says, I said, "Where do you want me to go?" He said, "Siren." And I said, "Well, I was just there 2 weeks ago, and nobody wants to go up there." And he said, "Yeah, but they liked you up there, Tom. They really want you back." So anyway, that's kind of how it started out. And then eventually I worked around the Twin Cities and worked my way up into small college, which was the MIAC conference, and went from there.
Nice. So how did you get into becoming an NFL referee? I mean, what was the application process like at that point?
Well, they don't come to you. I was in the Big Ten, and after my first year, a fellow from Ohio, he got into Big Ten. We both were in there. We were first year officials. His name is Bobby Moore, and he was an attorney in Dayton, Ohio. Anyway, he got in the NFL, and he called me to let me know he got in. I said, "That's great." And he says, "Tom, do you have any aspirations to do that?" And I really didn't. And my goal at that point was to work a Rose Bowl game. But he said, "If you want to get in the NFL, you got to write and apply and go from there." So I thought about it, and he told me who I should call. And so I did, and they sent me an application, and I filled it out. And they just said, "Next fall in the Big Ten, you just give us your games, we'll come and watch it, and we'll go from there." At that time, they looked at maybe 300 guys a year. They had scouts out around the country looking at college officials. So the year ended, and they sent me a letter, and it just said, we don't have any, right now, we don't have anything, any openings. If you want to continue to be a prospect here, just send us your schedule next year. So the next year, they changed supervisors in the Big Ten, and they put G. Calhoun, and they got Bo Schembechler from Michigan blackballed half the staff in the Big Ten. So we didn't have crews anymore. We couldn't work, and every week it was a different game. And so I would send in a postcard where my game was going to be, and they said, "You're going to have to call us because we're going to know quicker. We're going to have to know sooner than so we can get somebody out to see it." Well, anyway, they called me back in the year and said we wanted to interview me. And they said, "We're going to send you to Chicago to interview with a psychologist." And that was about a 3-hour meeting. And then after that, I took a physical, and they came out to St. Paul. We spent about 6 hours in the airport in one of the little offices out there, and just talking about family and sacrifices, and you're away from home. Nothing about football and rules or anything like that. And he said, "We'll call you April 1st. We're talking to 20 guys. We're going to bring in 6, and we'll let you know." Well, they called April 1st, and I got in.
Nice.
So that's how it started.
Awesome.
Tom, with us being a Fourth Down Experience Special Teams podcast, what was some really key relationships that you had with popular kickers, punters, long snappers over the years?
Well, I can honestly say, and they didn't want us to they really get buddies or familiar or close to the players. They set it up so that we would work. You would never get the same team more than twice a year. And, I really never really spent a lot of time talking to any of the kickers. I know I tell you this, it's a job I wouldn't want because there's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on those guys. And, they earn their money, believe me. And it's not a job that's, you can be gone in a week, as you can see here with, what's happened with the Vikings in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So I never really, there was a few players that I knew, got to know, like Matt Burke and some of those local guys. But other than that, I never really talked with or got to know many of the players.
I got you.
So I really got to know the sideline guys, like the down box holders, the equipment guy, the team doctor. They never changed, but the players and the coaches every year was constant turnover.
Right. Here's another question for you. You may get some just rapid fire questions here. So, a question that is always often asked at the high school level, just because it happens so frequently, because the goalposts are always so small, is the ball going over the upright as a field goal kicker, and then then we all get upset because it looked like it was in from our angle, and then the ref calls it no good or whatever. What is the rule? What is y'all's token rule, whether you were doing it or whether your fellow staff members were doing it? If the ball goes over top of the upright, which obviously in the NFL is taller, but what's the rule that y'all are told to do when y'all call it?
Well, the rule for the field goal, the point at, whatever it is that the official who looks up from the ground, there are two of them, one on each side of the goalpost. And they look up, and if the ball is inside the outside edge of that pipe, it's good. And I used to play that position for a while. I was a back check, so I went underneath the goalpost to make that call. I remember I had a Viking game out in San Francisco, and I'm telling you, it's not that easy. It sounds easy, but it isn't. And those guys kick the ball so darn high. It's a difficult call to make, and they even extended the height of the posts on each side of the goalpost to make it easier.
Right.
Anyway, they kicked the field goal, and I called it good. And I came back for the kickoff, and I'm right by the coaches and the players, and the guys all over me said, what are you talking about? I said, that wasn't good. You know that one. And I said, hey, that's good by a good half inch, and he went berserk.
So Tom, is it just the assumption that if there were a pole there, that you would be certain that it would nick inside?
Yeah, inside the outside edge.
So what do you think happens at the high school level? I mean, there have just been so many personally that I've seen and watching on film where it just looks so obvious that it's curling in a good yard inside. And I mean, do you think at the high school level these guys are told, like, if any part of the ball goes over the upright, just call it no good? I mean, why do you think it's so popular on Mississippi? I mean, it happens every year, all the time. It's awful.
Well, in high school, they don't have enough officials, so they only have one official under the goalpost.
No, we have there's two
now.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well then, okay. I wasn't sure of that. I've been away.
I was just curious if there was what I've always heard from I've heard from a couple NFL guys that before they added the extensions, that they had heard, some of these guys try to talk to the refs, that if there was any part of the ball that went over that upright, that they would always just call it no good because of the uncertainty of where the ball would kick, left, right, or forward, or backward, or wherever,
Well, they have. It's a little tougher there too because that pipe isn't extended
Right.
like it is in the NFL, and so it just doesn't go up as high. But I think they have the same. They go by the same rule inside the outside edge, and I didn't realize they had two officials under there. So if they do, that's a change, and it should be easier for them. Back in the day, they had you'd go under, and if the ball was going to go to one side, you'd kind of cheat to that side of the post to try and make a better call.
Yeah. What's it like refereeing the punt return? The ball's coming in, and you got guys coming down that's about to make a tackle, and the returner has to make that catch. Has that always been kind of a tough call for you guys, just because?
Yeah, I would say that's the worst position on the team for any player is to be a punt return guy.
Oh wow!
So you're focused on the ball. You got to make the catch, and you got the kickers running down. I mean, it's stressful, believe me. And that the wideouts who are going down to cover the punt, I mean, they get beat up every kick. I mean, it's incredible. And when there's two guys on the return team blocking, or a guy running down the field, a wide guy, they just if there's two guys on them, they don't want a foul call unless it's really obvious that they take the guy and grab him and throw him down, like wrestling. Otherwise, they don't want that called.
So
the poor guy who returns, he's out there on an island by himself. That's a tough position.
So from a ref standpoint, is it hard to call that little bubble window that they're supposed to have? Because it seems like some of those gunners that run down the field get awfully close to the returner.
Yeah.
Regardless, it must be hard to just make a quick judgment call on that.
Well, you got to give the receiver. You have to give him a chance to catch the ball, even if you don't. If there's no contact, you still have to let that receiver he's got a right to catch the ball. If you get too close and interfere with him, it's a penalty. It's a penalty for interference with the opportunity to catch the ball.
Yeah. Got a 2-part question for you here, Tom. Over your career, let's say NFL, how many game-winning kicks do you think you've witnessed?
How many what? Game-winning
field goals have you witnessed?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd have to think. Not that many. I'm going to say maybe half a dozen.
Wow, okay. And then do you think the concept of icing the kicker, do you think that works on kickers?
I don't. Well, you've seen it where not too often, but it might have an effect. It's hard to say, but you've seen it where they've snapped the ball and the guy kicked it, but the coach on the sideline had called timeout prior to the snap, and the kick is good, but it didn't count because they had a timeout. So then they give them another chance at it, and they miss. I mean, that's happened. I'm going to guess 20-30% of the time, yeah. So I think there's some merit there.
Okay. What, based on so your whole career spanning 26 years as an NFL referee, what were some of the biggest changes that you saw that made it hard as a referee? And then even kind of since you've been out of the game for 8 years now, what's changed recently that you think makes it hard for the referee these days?
Well, what I saw coming through from 1986, the players got faster and quicker, and bigger, and the rule changes. Probably the changes have been made to entice the offense to do better. The league likes to see scoring. So they put in the chuck rule, the 5 yard, where a receiver, after 5 yards downfield, as a defender, you can't, as long as the quarterback's in the pocket to throw a pass, you can't chuck them or hit them. You have to, you can run them side by side. There could be some hand contact, handing him, but you're not supposed to chuck the guy. So that's really changed. I think that's probably the biggest change for an offensive receiver and to benefit them.
Tom, what do you think about defensive linemen hopping over the snapper and blocking the field goal?
They changed that rule where the center on the snap for a punt, for a field goal or point after, the defender cannot line up opposite him. They have to be outside the shoulder of the center.
Mm-hmm.
Because what was happening was, as soon as the guy had snapped the ball, they'd just crunch him down into the ground. It was the safety thing really that brought it on. But that was a huge change, and I think that probably 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago is when they changed that rule.
Yeah.
What do you think, Tom, with all the rule changes with kicking? The game is called football, and it appears that eventually kickoffs will get taken out of the game. But what do you think? Guys are just standing there at the 34-yard line now, and the guy kicks off, and you got the XFL coming out now, where the kicking teams are all down on one end of the field, and the kickers on the other side of the field. There's no impact. I mean, do you foresee the NFL ever taking kickoff away? Do you think they'll always keep trying to improvise it to keep it such an iconic play in the game?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts just from over the years?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of receivers on a kickoff run the ball back. It's a great play. It's very exciting. The fans love it. But from a safety standpoint, a kickoff is like, I don't even know how to describe it. I was down on the goal line. That's where I'd line up for every kickoff. And when that ball come down and that receiver would catch the ball and try to run, I mean, it was like Pearl Harbor. I mean, bodies were flying around, and it was unbelievable. So I think from a safety standpoint, you might see that, where we're not doing kickoffs anymore because it's too many. I know I heard a figure that a few weeks ago that concussions related to kickoff and the percentage of concussions was down because of the rules that they've changed just in the last year or two. Yeah. So, maybe it'll stay the same as it is right now. I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's brutal. I don't know how sometimes they get hit and it's so hard you can feel the ground shake. I'm not kidding. I don't know how they get up off the ground, these guys. And I don't know how they get up Monday morning.
Well, they always say it's like they feel like they got in a car accident the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
Over your years of playing, what are some of the iconic moments that you remember that maybe, sometimes you see on TV, you're like, yeah, I was reffing that game?
It sounds kind of corny when I say this, but every game, and I worked a lot of them, is huge. I can tell you my second year in the league, we had a game in Green Bay, and their quarterback, his name was Makowski. It was before Brett Favre.
Oh, Don Makowski.
Yeah, and they played New Orleans, and New Orleans was ahead 21-0 at the half, and in the third and fourth quarter, he didn't throw an incomplete pass, Mikowski. It was unbelievable. Bing, bing, bang, bang. Now, all of a sudden, the score is 24. New Orleans had a field goal to 21. Green Bay scored 3 touchdowns. So now we're in the fourth quarter, about 40 seconds to go. Mikowski throws a pass down my sideline, and I'm on the line of scrimmage, and he throws it to 24 yards downfield. The guy catches the ball. The official downfield calls it incomplete. And I'm looking at this, and I swear to God, he got both feet down, touched, and I got a catch. So when that happens, they don't want one official waving incomplete, the other official waving complete. So you don't do anything when you think you should change the call. And I ran down to Doyle Jackson, was his name. And I said, Doyle, are you 100,000% sure that is an incomplete pass? And he says, no, I don't know. And I said, well, then we're changing it to a completion. And it was a tough call. So we changed it. Ben Dreith was the referee. And when we changed the call, he announced it, and it sounded like, the fans went crazy. And they keep the drive going now. And there's 3 more pass down the field. They score a touchdown, win the game. It's over. So now we're in the locker room, and Jim Finks, he's a general manager of the New Orleans Saints at the time. The door was open, and he knew Ben Dreith. He come walking into Ben. He said, Ben, how can you change that call to a catch? And Ben says, well, I don't know. Ask the guy over there. He made the call, and he points at me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hey, thanks a lot, buddy. And I said, you know what, Jim? Mr. Finks, I said, I would bet my house the guy got both feet down. It's a catch. And he said, fine, that's all I wanted to know. He turned around and walked out. He's really a classy guy. So, and you have these kind of, over a career of 26 years, I could go on and on and on, and a lot of plays like that. But they're big. And there's a lot of money involved. And believe me, when they lose a game, they only play 16 games, so it's big every weekend.
So I'm assuming based on your comment, do you feel the pressure as a ref to make sure that you get everything correct, or is there an element of human error that everybody kind of expects, like hard to get it perfect, but you do your best?
Well, we can't be, we can't be perfect. Nobody can be perfect, but we can be excellent,
Yeah.
We can strive to be excellent, but you can't be perfect. And I think, they get ripped up during the game, the players, but especially the coaches. It's their whole life.
Yeah.
And if it goes against them, it doesn't sit well with them, believe me. I learned a lot of new words over the years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. On the field, how much smack talk's going on? And
well, it's quite a bit. When I first got in, it was the first year they had instant replay.
Yeah.
And
was that I'm assuming that was positive, right? To have instant replay, or did that even make it harder on you guys?
Well, in the beginning, I think it was harder. I mean, it was the umpire carried a phone, and it was like they used in the foxholes, like in World War II, great big thing. And we're down in Houston. They're playing Oakland Raiders, and all of a sudden, in those days, the replay guy up in the booth, he'd stop the game. He'd buzz downfield. We'd stop the game. He'd look at the play. And then he would say, yeah, it's a completion or it's incomplete, whatever.
Yeah.
So they stopped the play, and I run in there, and I never really been into the middle of the field. And these guys, they're going at it. They're calling each other about their mother and everything else, and well, wow. But anyway, it took it felt like 15 minutes, but it was probably 4 or 5 minutes. And the problem was it was brand new. The reception with the replay, the guy up in the booth, instead of talking to the guy down in the field, he was on he was getting like a police call where there was a robbery at some place over on the other side of town. That's the reception he was getting. There was no, they couldn't talk to each other, and it went on, and then finally they figured it out. We went from there, but there's a lot of smack talk going on, believe me.
Yeah. What typically happens if, let's say, you guys decide to call, and you kind of realize later, we got it wrong? Is there makeup calls that happen, or is it just you just apologize to the head coach and say, hey, sorry, we realized we probably blew that call? Like, how does that work as a ref typically?
Well, there's no makeup call. I think when I think back, every game when I'd leave the field, there was always one, maybe two, maybe three calls or plays that I think I missed. Mm-hmm. I never thought I ever had a perfect game. I don't think anybody does. But, I had a game once, and this is in my college career. I was in Michigan State, and it was in Michigan at that big stadium over there, and the tight end for first quarter, the tight end for Michigan realized he's on the wrong side of the field. So he comes over to the opposite side, and just as he's bringing his hand down to touch the ground, they snapped the ball. It should have been a false start, and I didn't call it. And George Perlis was the coach at the time, Michigan State, and he's all over me. Well, anyway, during the next timeout, which was probably 3 plays later, I turned around and I went, Coach, I got to tell you right now, I blew the call. I missed it. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. He said, you know what, Coach? He said, that's all I wanted to hear. He said, I've missed 3 or 4 calls already today. And he said, I just wanted to hear you admit that. And that was it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what most coaches, it seems like, want, that is at least just kind of admit you messed up once, an accident, So, are there a few coaches over the years that you've just enjoyed interacting with? Like, you kind of like, I like reffing this game because I know that coach is going to treat me with respect, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think most of them are that way. Mm-hmm. They can all, believe me, if they think you missed a call, they let you know it. But they all did it in a different way. You had guys screamers. You'd have guys that would talk to you like a psychology guy. And I remember one time Bill Walsh at San Francisco, right toward the end of the first half, he wanted a crack back block, and I didn't see it, so I didn't call it. And the half's over, so he's walking off the field with me. He says, Tom, this is something we got to work on. He said in the off season, he said, you missed that crackback call, but those are easy to miss. We got to figure out a way where we don't miss those. And we got to, and I'm going, geez, okay, fine. So the whole second half, I'm looking for crackback blocks on every play, right? Mm-hmm. And I get every week we get, on Saturday, we go over the game from the week before, play-by-play and so forth. And I looked at that, it wasn't even close. Yeah. I didn't see any crackbacks, so he was kind of like a psychologist, just to make it, but he would never raise his voice. Yeah. He always talked. And then you got other guys that scream and yell, Bobby Ross, I could go down the list of the screamers. So they're all different. They're all out there, and they do it in their own way.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
I'll tell you, one guy, Andy Reid, I was pulling for him yesterday to win that game, and I'm so glad that they did, because he deserves a Super Bowl ring. And I can remember in Philadelphia, I made a call against his defensive end. He came right across on the snap, jammed his hand right into the face mask of the offensive blocker. So I throw my flag. And the assistant coach is screaming all over me. That's no foul, what are you looking at, da-da-da-da. Andy Reid turns to the guy and he said, keep your mouth shut. That was a good call. And that was it. You could hear a pin drop. The guy never said another word. So he's a class act. He's been through a lot. His son, overdose of drugs, cost him his life. It It was awful. I mean, he's been through the ringer, believe me. But he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Wonderful coach.
Yeah. So leading up to a game, how much game prep do you do as a referee? And then also, I guess at the end of the game, is there any post-game follow-up that you do as a ref?
Yeah. I can tell you this. When the game ends, we get a DVD of the broadcast from the network before we leave the locker room. And they want all of us to take that DVD, get on the airplane, and review, look at the game, look at the calls, and so on and so forth. I can tell you this now because I'm not working anymore. I never did that. When the game ended, I put it away. I mean, it's over, and I would wait till Monday or Tuesday and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
But during the week, the way it ended up the last 5 years or so, we could get on our laptops. They gave all of us laptop computers. And they wanted us to look at the two teams that we were going to officiate for the next weekend. And look at special teams. Look at their tendencies, running, passing, blocking, so on and so forth. So I spent time doing that on Thursday or Friday night. So it's a week. You go all week, believe me.
Yeah.
It's not just weekends.
What I remember, there was a period of time when I think referees had a full-time job, and then they also refed on the weekends. And then they changed it. So was that part of your lifestyle where you had like a regular full-time job and then you also refed?
Yeah, the way they pay us is by the years of service. So everybody would get the same pay. So if you're in the league for 7 years, all the 7-year guys get the same pay. So the referee, they gave him an extra $10,000 because he had to do more work on the telephone, he had to do more paperwork, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the guys who were, I would say, 55, 50, mid-50s and younger, they worked. They still had a day job. And then the older you got, the longer you were in the league. The older refs didn't do much with a regular job during the week. And I don't know if it was, when I was in there, the average age was 51 for an NFL official. And I'm not sure what it is today. But today, they're paying those guys a lot of money, so I would say a majority of them don't work a daytime job.
I suppose it allows you to fully focus on the role of the ref.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And every week, I'm sure they still do this, but we had a test of about 50 questions that every week we would answer. We'd write up these, and then on Saturday in our meeting, we'd go over the test. So like I said, it was really not just a Saturday, Sunday job, it's avocation.
Yeah. Do you still keep in touch with some of the past and current referees right now and just talk shop?
I talk with a handful of retired guys in my era. The guys working now, the local, I talk to a couple of them every now and then, but you don't have, when you were working every week, you always had something to talk about. This play or that play, or what do you think of this deal here and that? But, those days are gone, and I don't have that desire to talk to the current officials because, it's a different time.
Yeah.
So I don't spend a lot of time on the phone with the current guys.
Okay. This has been awesome so far. So just to tie in one more special teams related question, when you were reffing, which special teams play was the most fun to ref or witness, whether it was field goal or kickoffs or whatever?
I'd say a punt.
Punt?
Scrimmage kick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just because there was so much that could happen?
Yeah, I got in the league and came in downfield, a sideline guy downfield, and there's a foul or penalty call, an IBW. It's an illegal block from behind above the waist. Mm-hmm. So I go one game, two games, I don't have a foul. And I'm in Chicago. That was the year after they won the Super Bowl. And they had a game there at home with Philadelphia. That was Buddy Ryan, who coached Chicago's defense. He was, the inventor of the 3-4 defense, all on and on. Well, anyway, he gets a job in Philadelphia. He comes into Chicago. You could feel the tension. You could cut it, with a knife. So anyway, they punt the ball, and I'm downfield, and this guy, if that block, you got to learn this from being there, because when we would talk, have our sessions, it was always, make sure the block's right in the back, right in the numbers, not on one hand on the side and the other in the back. Well, anyway, I throw foul for a IBW, and the guy runs 65 yards for a touchdown. Of course, it comes back, and it was a bad call. Mm-hmm. And you feel it hurts. Yeah. And something like that. But I would say the scrimmage kick was probably the most exciting, no question.
So it sounds like, from what I've researched, you're credited with refereeing one Super Bowl, correct? Which one was it, and what were some moments that you remember from it?
It was a long time. It was 1994. My fourth year as a line judge, and it was Buffalo Bills playing Dallas Cowboys, and Buffalo had lost 3 Super Bowls. This was their 4th Super Bowl in a row. Mm-hmm. And the game was 13-7 at the halftime. Buffalo was ahead. And I said, wow, they're going to win. They're going to beat Dallas. I could just feel it. Well, anyway, in the third quarter, we changed sides at the halftime. I'm on the Buffalo sideline. And about the third play or fourth play of the third quarter, they had a running back, Thurman Thomas, from Buffalo. And he had a close call. He fumbled the ball. And I made right in front of me. And then you got to determine, was his knee down? Or did the ball come out before his knee was down? Ba-boom, ba-boom. And bam, you got to make the call. And I thought it was good. The guy from Dallas, I think his name was Washington, I'm not sure. He scoops up the ball, runs about 55 yards, scores a touchdown. And now they go ahead 14-13. And you could feel the wind come out of the Buffalo players on the sideline. It was like they were finished. Mm-hmm. And the game just turned around. Yeah. And Dallas won the game. I think it was 29-13, I think. But it was just changed just on that one play. It's amazing how that can affect the game by just one play.
And you can probably feel it when you're actually on the field. You can feel momentum shifts, I bet, right?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's.
I'll tell you, that game yesterday, it was up and down and up and down. I didn't think Kansas City could do it. But that third quarter, it finished. It was 20-10 right at the end of the third quarter. And I'm saying there's no way Kansas City, they got a great quarterback, but man, that's a long way to do, in one quarter. And I think, personally, the 49ers kind of got overconfident at that point. They were already getting their rings sized, They thought they had it in the bag. And boy, did that turn around!
Yeah. Do you find yourself kind of roughing from the couch? You're like, oh, that was a hold. Yeah. That was I suppose it's hard to give it up, right?
Yeah. When I go, I work with the Big Ten, mm-hmm. And what I do is I every weekend I take a game and critique the officiating, and then on Saturdays I go out. And I go to a Division II or Division III college game and look at officials and critique them and send in a report. And When I go to a football game, I look at the officials. I don't even watch the game, you know. And on TV, you know, it's a little harder because you don't really see the officials. But when I go to a game, that's what I do.
Yeah, it's kind of like us, kicking coaches. You go watch a game and you pay attention to the punts and the field goals, and you kind of critique the snaps and all that type of stuff. So
Yeah. You know, the best special teams coach in all my years in the NFL was Chuck Pfeiffer. And he was at Detroit for a long. Then he went to Denver. And his son, Mike, was a special teams coach with the Vikings.
Oh, Prefer?
Yeah, FIFA.
Prefer, yeah. Mike Prefer.
And prior to that, he was out in New York. And he's a great guy, too. But his father was incredible. He'd call me.
Mm-hmm.
He'd call me during the week. Either apologize for, what he said or had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was. No one ever did. He was great.
Oh, that's great. Well, sweet. Well, our two fun questions that we always end. We have a capstone question we ask, and then I'm going to kind of tie it into your refereeing as well. First of all, who were your 5 favorite players to watch? I mean, you had to probably as a quasi fan be like, oh, sweet, I'm going to watch Joe Montana. Or like, did you have certain players you're like, wow, this will be fun to watch and ref?
Yeah, I'd say Barry Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
He was the best running back I've ever seen, but he was. You couldn't see him. He was short,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd get knocked down and put his hand down and get back up and run. But I'd say Barry Sanders, Joe Montana, Brett Favre. He loved to play. He just loved the game. That guy.
Mm-hmm.
He loved football. He loved competing and so on and so forth. Probably, I had Walter Payton. I worked his last game, but he was kind of at the end of his career when I got him, so he didn't really stand out. But there's so many good ones. Steve Young was another one. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I think this guy today, the Kansas City guy, is as good as they get.
Pat Mahomes?
Yeah, Mahomes, you never know with that guy.
Yeah, I suppose it keeps you on your feet as a ref because you don't know if he's going to run or pass and all that.
Well, when I was working, the guy from Atlanta, Michael Vick,
mm-hmm.
he was like a Mahomes.
Yeah.
He could run like crazy.
Yeah.
And he could throw the ball. He was left-handed. But he was a guy that was incredible.
Yeah.
And a tough guy to work for because you didn't know if he's going to run or throw the ball or whatever.
Yeah, I bet. All right, here's our capstone question. I got to make it a 2-part question. So every interview we ask the interviewee, and typically it's an athlete, to tell us their 5 favorite stadium experiences. So the 2 parts are going to be your 5 favorite stadium experiences in the NFL, and then if you recall your Big Ten experiences, maybe your 5 favorite stadiums to ref into.
Yeah, I'd say number 1 is Green Bay.
Nice.
And the reason being is you could get out of that stadium and get to the airport and be home by 7 o'clock Sunday night.
I bet.
Denver.
Nice.
And because of I would say Denver because of the excitement and the noise, and they're unbelievable there. Buffalo was another one. It was just insane. The coldest game I ever worked in my entire career was at Buffalo, and it was, I froze to death. I'm telling you, my hands are still, I can't, when it gets cold out and I try to go outside and shovel or do any of that, my fingers get cold right away. But Buffalo was an amazing place to work. Let's see, how many is that? 4?
That's 3. 2 more.
3? Okay. I would say probably New York.
Okay.
Just because it's the big time New York City, that was a great place to work. And another place is I'd say San Francisco and San Diego were toss up because they were always, especially San Diego, the weather was always perfect.
Can imagine. Good for refs to be in warm weather. Yeah.
That's more than anything. That's about the that's very important. But lately, the weather. And in college, I'd say Wisconsin.
Yep.
Number one because of the atmosphere over there. Michigan, 106,000 people there. Ohio State.
Yep.
Ohio State had it's like a horseshoe, and then they have a second deck above the horseshoe. So the noise from the bottom level hits top level, and then ricochets back down onto the field. And I had an Ohio State game there, and they were both in the top 5 in the country, and it was just, you couldn't even, it was so loud you couldn't hear your partner downfield. You couldn't even, you didn't know what they were saying.
Yeah, I bet.
But there, let's see, another one, let's see, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Iowa.
Yep.
That's another place where it's crazy. It's tough to win at Iowa for the visitor. And probably...
How about Penn State? Is that a fun one?
Penn State is huge. Huge stadium. I mean, there's over 100,000 there, too. Penn State is the whole city.
Yep.
At Penn State University.
And then you get the white out when everybody wears white. I'm sure that's an incredible sight.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I think college is, as far as the color of the fans, the band, everything considered is more exciting than the NFL.
Yeah, I can see that.
Other than the Super Bowl.
Sure.
The playoffs. They're outstanding.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Tom, we want to thank you for your time. This was a real fun interview to do. And on behalf of Brian and I, we just want to thank you for your time and your insight and the answers you were able to provide. It was real fun, and I'm sure our listeners are going to enjoy this.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, appreciate it. Al, you can call me anytime, man.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you. We'll probably be in touch then.
Okay, good luck to you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Well, guys, we hope you enjoyed that one. We thought it'd be a real fun interview to get a referee's perspective on the game of football and clarify some of the special teams questions. And obviously we talked about things beyond special teams, but I thoroughly enjoyed that just as a fan of the game, just to get some insight on what it's like to be a ref in the field. So thank you all for joining us. We have some fantastic interviews lined up this week, actually. So stay tuned and have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Down Experience. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fourth Down Experience.